by the Cardinals this year. Well, the Niners do have a lot of work to do, and as Kyle told us before the game, he can't wait for tomorrow morning. When he wakes up, it's on to the offseason, and you got to find a way for this football team to get better. Niners end the year 6-11, and on the road 2-6. They end the year with 4 straight losses and 1-7. After going to Tampa Bay and winning out of the bye to go to 5-4, they wind up 6-11.
Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you here following the 49ers 47-24 season finale loss in Arizona. 4 consecutive losses to wrap up the season. They go 2-6 on the road this year. I'm here live in our KNBR studios in downtown San Francisco. John Dickinson over outside of Chase Center at Harmonic Brewing, getting ready for a little Dubs OT tonight after the Warriors get going in just a bit. But we'll be with you here for a while talking some 49er football as they wrap up the season. JD, good to be back with you, man, after a pretty smooth pregame show as we were talking a lot about what's going on around the league and what the offseason is going to look like for the 49ers. But Kyler Murray goes for 242, 4 touchdowns in this one. They run all over the Niners, and that was pretty much all she wrote. We'll talk more injuries and whatnot, but just a sort of a microcosm of the way things have gone this year for the Niners, specifically when it comes to penalties.
Yeah, and brutal in the fourth quarter, which has been a problem for the 49ers all season. Close game going into the fourth, 49ers holding their own despite teams running on them again, as the Cardinals did today. But turnovers and just the domination of the opposition in the fourth quarter, really indicative of the season that the 49ers ultimately had that ends at 6-11.
It's tough after a game like this, and a game that really, it was a slow bleed out for this one. The first half, maybe the longest first half of the year, and the second half, maybe just as bad because of the injuries, too. You see Ike Guerrero go down like second play of the game, which is brutal. He gets carted off. Colton McKivitz ends up getting hurt later. We won't even talk about the line judge, the official, who had to get helped out of the game, too, after an injury. Juwan Jennings goes out after a couple of penalties. We'll talk about those momentarily. But Ricky Pearsall, a guy who I think stands out as a positive. We wanted to see him perform again. And again, this offense has not been what you hoped it would be this year. 2 picks, 2 touchdowns, and some good passing numbers today for Josh Dobbs at 326. But Ricky Pearsall stepping up, proving he can be the lead receiver and even a poor offense in the way this went at the back end of this season and in this game. He catches another touchdown, goes 6 for 69 on 8 targets. Really nice to see his emergence in the last couple of weeks.
The single greatest bright spot for the San Francisco 49ers in this back half of the season where everything completely got away from them has been really what Ricky Pearsall has been able to do here in these final couple of games of the regular season, because it just shows that he's ready with a full offseason to come back and be a major factor for this team in year 2. And so that's one box that I think Kyle can get checked early, right? The question marks surrounding Ricky Pearsall that would have been there had he not been able to go out and perform at the level that he has here to close the season. So I think, and look, Guerrero, I think up until the point in which he got injured at times had flashed with opportunity, but Ricky Pearsall is somebody the 49ers are truly going to have to lean on in a major way next year. And for him to be able to show that he can do it and show the growth, considering everything that he went through in his rookie season, things that normal, everyday humans don't ever have to deal with, let alone guys trying to figure out how to be a professional in the National Football League. So, hats off to Ricky Pearsall. And again, I think as we look for things that carry forward to next season, his output at the end of the season, I think, is right at the front of the list.
Well, certainly tough in a 11-loss season at 6-11 and a 47-24 finale and a 4th consecutive loss to wrap up the season to find bright spots. And that's why our stat of the game is going to be something that really the 49ers at the back half of the year fell apart with, and that was penalties. One of the least penalized teams in the league, like near their bye week, I want to say, into like week 8 or 9, and then completely fell apart. The numbers today, penalties for the Niners, and that doesn't even include the offsetting ones, 13 for 85 yards. It was just 1 for 5 yards on the Arizona Cardinals. We'll make that the stat of the game, sponsored by Poppy Bank, located throughout California. Poppy Bank is here to help you hit your financial goals. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. And I've got a note for you as well on the penalties today, or I thought I did here, from Nick Wagner had a note out there earlier on the number of penalties for the 49ers. No team in the league, well, one team in the league has been penalized in the second half since week 9 more than the Niners. It was the Cleveland Browns. The Niners were just terrible when it came to yardage allowed on penalties. And again, this was a game that didn't have a whole bunch of starters in it. The ones that did played a little bit in terms of limited fashion, and then once it got away at the end, that was just sort of it. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. Niners fall in the finale 47-24 to 24. They end the season at 6-11. And again, as JD mentioned, the lone bright spot I think today is Ricky Pearsall. 6 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown. That's the production they'll be looking for from him, certainly early next year without Brandon Ayuk as he recovers from that injury. We got more to come. We'll get you the difference maker of the game coming up next as the Niners wrap up the 2024 season. We also, by the way, have one game left on the 2024 regular season docket, and you can hear that game right here, the Lions and the Vikings coming up when we're done with the post game here. More to come. Adam Copeland, JD, 47-24. Arizona wins it on the Sports Leader.
And just go out and play. Just enjoy my time out there, compete, obviously get a win, but just play. You know, go out there and execute the offense, play at a high level, lead the guys around me, enjoy the opportunity to start a game in the NFL, which is always rare and hard to come by. So, yeah, that was my goals going into the game. And
that's Josh Dobbs, 49ers starting quarterback today, the Pastronaut. Josh Dobbs today, 29 of 43, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 picks, and kind of what you accept, what you know, or what you think you're going to get from a guy like Josh Dobbs, kind of a mixed bag. And I thought he operated fine. I think if he's putting on an audition and looking to put some tape out there, his lone start of the year, he comes in and ran for a touchdown in last week's game when Brock goes down. I think he did everything you asked of him, and that he would want to put on tape today as he's going to enter free agency.
Yeah, I thought it was a real good game for Josh Dobbs for what he's trying to accomplish in that audition. Tough in the first half with the interception. Sean Murphy-Bunting on the pass intended for Jennings. Great play by Sean Murphy-Bunting. Yeah. Originally, though, a flag on the play. We talked about the lack of penalties in this one for the Cardinals and the 49ers with 13. They drop the flag, then pick it up. And, that winds up being in turnovers. Just too big of a problem for the 49ers all season long at inopportune times when they're going down to assert themselves in a game, come back in a game. And that was, I think, the turning point to the negative of the first half, that interception, which the Cardinals quickly turned into the first touchdown of the game to take a 10-3 lead. Now, Dobbs showed he was up to the task and answered back, and Patrick Taylor got cooking a little bit on the next drive running the football. And so, look, Dobbs is a gamer. I like Joshua Dobbs. I would have no problem. I don't know where you stand on this, but I would have no problem. It sounds like maybe he wants another opportunity elsewhere, but I would have no problem with Joshua Dobbs being my backup quarterback if I were coaching or running an NFL franchise.
Well, would you take him as your third string? Because that's what he was for most of this year. I mean, he sat behind Brandon Allen. It's so funny. I think so many people thought that this is the more exciting and the more I always thought he had a higher ceiling. But I know that there's games where he comes out and he's just inaccurate and he's a little bit wild and erratic, and sometimes he gets running a little bit too much. But for the most part, I thought he did a pretty nice job today. Again, it was a game that didn't mean much of anything, but you pointed out the turnovers key in this one. And again, the 49ers do not turn over the opposition. We'll make that the difference maker of the game, sponsored by Benjamin Moore Paints. Experience the Benjamin Moore retail difference at our independently owned authorized retailers today or at benjaminmoore.com, and sponsored by Abundant Life Weight Loss. Call 925-594-7110 to start your journey today. Niners lose a fumble. It was Saubert who fumbled, right? Is that who it was who lost the fumble?
Yes.
And then 2 interceptions by Dobbs, so 3-0.
Yeah. No, and again, it's the fourth quarter turnovers too, Copes. It's 15 fourth quarter turnovers since the bye week when everything went awry for San Francisco.
Yeah, that's when things went rough. Also, a couple of big plays in this one, difference makers. I mean, I know that the score at the end gets out of hand, but 21 fourth quarter points. When you look at this team and things that went wrong this year schematically, and we talk about just needing better talent, specifically on the line, in the trenches, on both sides of the ball. But when it comes to creating pressure on opposing quarterbacks, they did a really bad job of that this year. They still have trouble stopping the run and big chunk runs like this, and they're not getting many of those themselves. When you look at moving forward and progressing in that area, is that a scheme thing purely, or just about getting better talent when we get to the draft and free agency?
Yeah, I think it's talent, to be perfectly honest. I think this team has to upgrade, and I think they have to upgrade at each level. Honestly, I think I think there's a lot. Sorry, I was having a hard time hearing you there.
You're good.
I was getting a little bit of a cut out there. But no, talent is something that has to be upgraded. I think up and down this 49ers roster, as much as we talk about their ability to be able to bounce back next season and how well they are set up to do it, I think on both sides of the ball. I do think that they're at a point where they need younger talent, more athletic talent, faster talent. Like they need an infusion, I feel like, at different positions, all three levels in particular of the defense.
Well, and Kyler Murray, he didn't kill you with his legs today. 4 passing touchdowns, 242 yards, but he did dice you specifically after the first quarter. And again, you got a lot of guys out there who are not starters and not everyday players, but in terms of getting off the field on third down, they didn't do a great job of that. They allow 36 total yards, and the third down efficiency for Kyler today, 4 of 11. The Niners put up 436, 393 was the number for the Arizona Cardinals. Only 22 yards on the ground for Kyler, but again, no sacks today. No sacks. Poor Leonard Floyd didn't get his sack and a half for $500K, but Kyler also didn't get his $750 on the rushing touchdown and the yardage. We got more to come. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson, who is live outside of Harmonic Brewing, hardest working dude, I'd say in the building, but he's never in the building because he's always working his ass off outside of the building. JD will be with you for Dubs OT a little bit later this evening after the Warriors play at Chase. We got more to come on the Niners loss 47-24 as they wrap up 2024 on the Sports Leader.
In total, here's a fake screen left and right. It was the Hollywood play going middle, and sacked is Josh Dobbs. That is the Hollywood play. It was supposed to go to Kittle over the middle. Fake screen left, fake screen right, and then a pump over the middle to Kittle. But they got in there and sacked Dobbs for a 12-yard loss.
Hollywood play didn't open with a big fanfare, I don't believe. So there you go. 49ers fall 47-24. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson, who's live at Harmonic Brewing outside of Chase Center, getting ready for the Dubs tonight. Protecting the Quarterback, JD, is sponsored by the Contra Costa County Office of the Sheriff. Protect your community and apply for your new career in law enforcement at cocosheriff.org today, and sponsored by Planet Orange, effective, eco-friendly pest control. Without looking at this game really specifically, in general, it's tough to evaluate the offensive line this year in any positive manner, just based on the lack of a run game in the second half of the season. And when you look at the opening day offensive line, you lost everybody except for Dominic Pooney, except for the rookie who's out there.
Yeah, and I think, Trent Williams coming back, obviously, and having a full Trent Williams year with none of the contract concerns is a hell of a foundation moving forward. I know everybody always constantly wants the 49ers to look to upgrade right tackle. Dominic Pooney, I think, it's been a hell of a find at the right guard spot. And I think as you look at the offseason, Aaron Banks is probably going to be elsewhere next year. So they're going to have to replace maybe a slot or two that they want to replace or upgrade, but also I think a spot that maybe they don't want to have to upgrade but will have to upgrade, because Banks is somebody that's going to probably find a nice payday somewhere else as the 49ers look to keep their financial house in order and address other priorities. So it's going to be interesting to see if they look to spread some of that Banks money out across the offensive line, or it winds up going to somebody that's an incumbent. And we talked a few weeks ago about Kyle Shanahan's willingness to look at the center position and the left tackle position. Those seem to be the two spots where he's willing to be able to spend a little bit because of those two and the impact that they have on setting the offensive line and obviously protecting the quarterback and Brock Purdy's blind side and all of that. So I think offensive line is fascinating in maybe a little bit of a different way, Copes, than 49er fans would demand that it be. Upgrade here, upgrade here, upgrade here. That's what you always hear, but it may be the 49ers having to be in a position where they're looking to upgrade at some spots, but also looking to replace a quality player in Banks at another.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you point at the center position. I didn't even, the disrespect I gave at Jake Brendel there when saying everybody went down except for Dominic Pooney. I know Brendel been out there, but I think there was a lot of people who wanted to see somebody else there. Even in the last couple of years, there's been questions about Brendel's protection and his ability to protect. Now, that said, you've got Christian McCaffrey in theory coming back next year. We'll see what happens with Trent Williams after they recalibrated and renegotiated his contract this offseason. But if he's got a year off or some time off here to get things together and decide that's not how he wants his career to go down, I'd anticipate he could still come back at a high level. I put more into a 10 games only, Tim says, that he played this year. I'd put more weight into the idea that he'd missed so much of the preseason and training camp. And again, it seems year after year, time after time, that these holdouts have happened with the 49ers. They have an impact on the on-field performance. We saw it with Ayuk. We saw it with Nick Bosa. We saw it with Deebo Samuel in the past. It's why I think they're going to work hard to try to get a lot of this stuff done in terms of contracts as quickly as they can. They do not want any of the Brock Purdy stuff to bleed into the preseason or into camp. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. JD is live outside of Chase Center where the Warriors, who are they playing tonight, JD? They get to Sacramento tonight, is that right?
Sacramento Kings, second of a back-to-back for the Dubs.
How about that? Doug Christie and company coming to town to take on the other Warriors at Chase. We got more to come, and when we're done here on postgame, we'll throw you over live to the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings, who are on Sunday Night Football in Detroit right now, 0-0 in the first quarter. We got more to come here as the Niners wrap up their season with a fourth consecutive loss, 47-24 at the hands of the Arizona Cardinals. We'll tell you about the injury report right after this on the Sports Leader.
All right, guys, injuries from the game. Isaac Garendo had a knee and an ankle. Not sure yet. Most likely an MCL, but we're going to have to find out for sure tomorrow. Malik Mustafa cut his knee up and bruised his knee. He was out, didn't return. Huff had a concussion, didn't return. Bernardo Green, groin, did not return. Conley had an elbow, he returned. Colton McKivitz, ankle, did not return.
That was Kyle Shanahan with the injury report. Not a positive one, as the Niners are going to come home banged up as they end the 2024 season in limp fashion, 47-24. The way it goes down in Arizona, they fall to 6-11. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you as JD's live from Harmonic Brewing outside of Chase Center, and I'm here in our studios in San Francisco. The injury report there was sponsored by Habas Law. They'll fight to make it right, and, well, they'll fight to make it right. So visit habaslaw.com and by Mike Council Plumbing when you need plumbing. Think green and go with Mike Council Plumbing online at mcplumbing.com. I mean, JD, when you look at like teams that you've covered or been a fan of as a kid, and you run through the number of injuries in bad seasons, and nobody ever is going to look at injuries and use it as an excuse. You look at the Detroit Lions, they've got nobody on their defense, even though they're holding right now Minnesota scoreless in the first quarter. You run through the number of important or perceived talented players for the 49ers this year that they lost. You can go from Javon Hargrave down to Christian McCaffrey to Brandon Ayuk to Trent Williams to George Kittle even missed a couple of games at one point this year. I mean, there's just been so many key players who have gone down this year. Then you mentioned the falling apart of the offensive line. The defensive line sort of falls apart. You still don't have a great edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa. Talanoa Hufanga comes back, and then he gets hurt again. I mean, it was a comedy of errors for the Niners when it came to injuries this year.
It really was. I mean, brutal. And, first and foremost, you look at getting Christian McCaffrey back. I think you have to look at Brandon Ayuk as somebody that you can't really expect a lot from. He's almost, I think, kind of found money if you can, get him healthy. I think you need to anticipate, Ricky Pearsall obviously having to step in. Well, there's a decision to be made on Deebo Samuel as well for next year and how he fits. Do they have to go look to add another receiver from somewhere? Trent Williams back and healthy, huge. I think they dodged one on Brock Purdy, which is important. But, yeah, Nick Bosa in and out a lot on the defensive side. What does Dre Greenlaw have for next year? Do the 49ers look to sign Dre Greenlaw? I think they should. I think while the prospect of future injury and him getting banged up so quickly in his return, I think would give you a little bit of pause. I think he's somebody that I'd be willing to invest in if I'm the 49ers. So, yeah, alarming and all too familiar, the injuries for the 49ers. Very similar to that 2020 feel in the COVID year after the Super Bowl year where just everybody got hurt and they got kicked out of the state, and it was just kind of an all systems fail. But the ability to bounce back and have guys get healthy, I think is going to be important if they look to be the team that I think everybody thought they could be this year in 2025.
Well, and again, when we looked at the schedule for next year, and you heard Papa and Tim Ryan talking about it at the end of the broadcast, we talked about it last week. We joked about the lack of appealing nationally televised games, and then you remember the Super Bowl is going to be played at Levi Stadium, so maybe the NFL will do their best to get a little bit more on display for the 49ers, maybe a holiday game or something like that, if they can organize one of those or fit that into the schedule. But in terms of the prospects of bouncing back, again, there's nobody in the division that looks like they're otherworldly or that looks like they're on their way to becoming a powerhouse. I mean, you look around the playoff pictures, there's two divisions that got three teams in, right? The AFC West got three teams in, the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Broncos after their win today, and the NFC North with the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings are all going to go. The Niners may still be in a division where one team is going to come out of it, and they have a damn good shot, I think, based on the perceived talent in the schedule for next year.
Yeah, no, I think it's. I've talked about the least sexy schedule you can imagine, but I think that bodes very well. I think the 49ers need to get off the radar. I mean, they need to get off the grid a little bit. And, yeah, maybe a few more early morning games, maybe a few less nationally televised games, whatever it is, get off the grid, hone in on your skills, and then look up in the middle of the year and be that team that's 8-2, and you're getting games flexed into, right? Like, because there's some surprise teams that maybe you're playing against, and you're playing at a really high level, and it's like, oh, the Niners are back, one of the biggest brands, obviously, in professional sports. So if the Niners prove even a little bit that they're some semblance of the team they've been these last 3 years as opposed to this year, I think they're going to get right back on that national stage quickly, regardless of who they're playing. But a little bit of time away from the week-to-week, day-to-day expectations of Super Bowl or bust and everything that goes with that being the talking point of every game, I think that can be a little bit refreshing and invigorating for the 49ers.
Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you following a 49ers loss to wrap up the 2024 season. They'll have the 11th pick of the draft. We'll talk about some of that with our guy Larry Krueger in the post-game interview that we'll do in just a couple of minutes. The final in this one is the Niners give up 21 points in the fourth quarter, 47-24. Not a lot to write home about, but Ricky Pearsall, a nice bright spot for the Niners today. We'll talk more about where the Niners go with that 11th pick. I'm sure Larry's already got a whole draft board up. We'll talk about it with Krug next on the Sports Leader.
It sound right, boys. Sound right, boys. It sound right, boy.
Yeah, no, the takeaways, the lack thereof is what killed us. That you can't win games in this league. We pride ourselves on taking the ball away and protecting it on offense, and that's the key to winning games. And when you're not doing that, you don't give yourself any type of chance to even, have a chance at winning.
That's the voice of Fred Warner there. 49ers, again, did not turn over the opposition, something that became a theme at the back part of the season. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you in our post-game interview with our guy Larry Krueger. It's sponsored by the Handler Union Square Hotel, San Francisco's oldest family-owned hotel. Larry, that was not a fun way to end the season, and as I said to JD, kind of a slow bleed out, too, the way that one went down, bro. How are you?
Oh man, well, it was a tough game. It was a tough season, man. I mean, start to finish, we all just kind of kept waiting for the 49ers to kind of show themselves, and it just never happened. And it was a weird vibe in training camp, and I guess we should have known then that that was kind of did not bode well for the season that lied ahead. But as far as today was concerned, I mean, there was a lot of encouraging things in this game. But once again, the defense just absolutely fell apart. I don't know what happens to this defense in the first half. They're pretty good defense. In the second half, they just could not stop the run at all. I mean, at all. They ran for almost 100 yards in the second half.
What would you say is the biggest single key to fixing the 49ers defense? Because we've talked about it a ton, the fact that, yards-wise, statistically it's been good, but situationally it's been so awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's the defensive line and the front. It's the entire front seven. I mean, they used to have a really scary, intimidating front seven that literally, sent fear into opposing offensive coordinators and into the minds of opposing quarterbacks. They scare nobody. They used to have a great D-line. Now they have Nick Bosa. They used to have a great linebacking core. Now they have Fred Warner. And you mix in age and some injury, and even those guys are not quite as effective. So they need to rebuild their front seven. In a wide nine, if they're going to stay with the wide nine, in a wide nine defense, your ends shoot up the field, and they funnel everything back inside to the tackles. The tackles in a wide nine have to have the ability to really control the guy in front of them and be able to come off those blocks and make lots of plays. And the 49ers this year, I like Malik Collins and Jordan Elliott. They're solid NFL players, but they're not spectacular, and they're not coming off blocks. So to me, they really need those difference makers inside. Floyd's been pretty good. Bosa's still Bosa, but they've dropped several levels inside, and they need to go out. I think defensive tackle, probably a couple times they need to hit that in the draft in April.
Not that you were not confident in Ricky Pearsall, but you and I were sitting next to each other at the Lions game, Larry, and I said to you before the game, what's your thought on this guy? What can he be? I mean, it's tough. You talked about how tough they talk about him, and then you mentioned he's a guy who loves playing football, and they like guys who like playing football. He finally had what I called last week a ceiling game, so we know what he's capable of. Had another good performance today. Where are you with Ricky Pearsall, even relative to what you thought of him 3 weeks ago?
Well, I mean, the kid is just a tremendous kid. You talk to him in the locker room. He is not the guy walking around going, man, I'm this, I'm that. He thinks, he's very humble. He's very hardworking. He's very tough on himself. It didn't bother him at all that Leonard Hankerson sounded him out. He did not shrink in that moment. He just added to his resolve to be better. He's very serious about football. He's very serious about improving at football. He's going to maximize the potential that he has. It hasn't happened yet for him, but you're starting to see it. He's a good route runner with well above average hands. He doesn't have great, he had a 42-inch vertical, but I don't know that I've seen that ability to play, to pick the ball out of the air. Maybe that's coming down the road, but I think he's definitely a very good continuity piece wide receiver who's going to be very, very difficult for teams to defend on third and 5, 3rd and 6. Once he can run to a spot and Purdy knows where he's going to be and they're on the same page, and I would say this offseason they'll get on that same page, I think Purdy to Pearsall is going to be a pass combo that you can know it's coming, and you're still going to have a hard time stopping it.
Where would you go in terms of receiver? Obviously, Ayuk's going to be coming back from the injury. What do you do with Debo? Does this team have enough wide receiver depth, quality depth? Is Jacob Cowing going to be a factor? How do you see that position overall heading into 2025?
Well, it's a position, JD, that full well that it's a position that's all about guys that complement one another. So they have in Pearsall a really sticky-handed receiver who can run routes in the slot, out of the slot. get open against man coverage. They have Debo, and I do think Debo will come back unless they trade him on draft day. But I still think Shanahan likes Debo. I think Debo will do whatever he needs to do to come back contractually to fit into what their cap looks like. So I think he's back. Ayuk is going to be back, but I don't know what when he's going to be back and what he's going to look like when he gets back. But he wasn't a burner to begin with. Cowing is a good runner, but I think Tim Ryan said it today in the pregame, and I wholeheartedly agree. He's got to spend the offseason lifting weights. He's got to get in that 190 range. He's too easy to reroute. He's too easy to shuck at the line of scrimmage. He's got to get stronger. So he's going to get stronger. Jennings is coming back and going to be very reliable. As you can see, what they don't have is they don't have the vertical guy. They got to have the guy that just walking to the line of scrimmage makes the corners nervous. And there are guys like that in this free agent market. McCole Hardman, Tutu Atwell, Rondale Moore. They got to find a dynamic, moving receiver to add to this mix. I think they can find it relatively cheaply in free agency, but they're going to need a very specific skill set in a receiver. Somebody who can separate, somebody who can run sub 4.3, somebody who makes the defense worry about the bomb.
Larry, it's a bummer the way the season went down. 6-11, they wrap it up, and I said it was a sort of a limp performance here on the way out as they lose to the Arizona Cardinals on the road again. 2-6, they wrap up the season on the road. But you know what it means if it's now the end of the season for the Niners? It means it's birdsong season, baby. It's time to get into some birdsong, Krug.
Man, I may have to dust off my bird song in September. I think it was Diamondback, maybe a 4-inning start. I may have to be watching that one of these nights.
Well, that may be your number 2 this year, by the way things are looking right now. So, Krug, have a great rest of your night, man. Niners Nightly, weeknight, 6 to 7. The Krug Show going on all hours of the day and night, and we'll talk to you later, bro.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Good deal, man. Thanks for everything this season. Good stuff here. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you as the 49ers have fallen to the Arizona Cardinals 47-24 the final. When we're done here, we're going to throw you over to Sunday Night Football where the Vikings are taking on the Detroit Lions for a shot at the 1 seed in the NFC playoff picture. As it stands right now, 13-10 to play in the second. Lions up 7-0. We got more to come here. We'll get you the player of the game, the drive of the game, and the call of the game, as the 49ers fall to 6-11 to wrap up 2024 on the Sports Leader.
Dobbs, plenty of time, throws, and is caught for a touchdown by Ricky Pearsall back in Arizona. Touchdown, San Francisco.
Ricky P with a strong catch in the phone booth on Keytrell Clark.
Ricky Pearsall, another 6 catches today for 69 yards on 8 targets. So the leading receiver back-to-back weeks now for the 49ers as they wrap up 2024 with a tough loss, 47-24 at the hands of a division opponent, the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals sweep the Niners this year, by the way.
Phone booth.
Yeah, there you go. Ricky Pearsall makes that catch in the phone booth. We'll make Ricky Pearsall there the player of the game, sponsored by Bigelow Tea. JD, grab a mug and tea proudly. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you as the Niners have wrapped up their 2024 regular season and completed the season as they will not be on to the playoffs. JD, you got a player of the game for me?
Yeah, aside from Ricky Pearsall, right? He's off the board.
Yeah, he's off the board.
I'm going to go with Juwan Jennings
In the phone booth.
Oh, okay, tell me about I like your Jennings pick. Tell me about it.
7 catches on 10 targets. 2 of the best freaking blocks you will ever see. He got both Cardinals corners. He got Sean Murphy Bunting after he got the other corner. A name is escaping me at the moment.
He pancaked the hell out of that first dude. Yeah, Taylor.
Yeah, and so to me, that I loved what Juwan Jennings brought to the table, and then was wanted all the smoke. It ticked off both guys to the point where they both wanted to start a fight with him, and then should not have been kicked out of the game.
I couldn't believe the first penalty. The first personal foul penalty, I was like, so what's the personal foul? He blocked him too hard? He pancaked him? Because when the guy came at him, when Taylor, he just jumped up and kind of started to walk away, and it was clearly not his instigating, but the corner was unhappy about how he got blocked. And by the way, don't forget about the play last week when he blocked the dude into the end zone in the Lions game, out of the back of the end zone, and then he got shoved into the stands.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. The physicality in essentially a meaningless game, it was awesome. Starling Thomas is
there you go, Thomas, not Taylor, yeah.
Thomas and Sean Murphy Bunting, and both plays blocked them so well, so vigorously, so physically, that the only thing they could do because they got punked so bad was start a fight. Now, you can make the case, all right, yeah, and then to me it was the classic double technical, both of them. It was the classic NBA double technical where one guy clearly instigates it. The Cardinals player instigated it both times. What Juwan Jennings did was legal. It was a football play. There was no penalty on what Juwan Jennings did in terms of blocking them, but then they turn it into wanting to make it about trying to get into a fight, and then it winds up being the old double technical, double penalty. But because Jennings got 2 of them on consecutive plays, he got tossed out of the game, along with Sean Murphy Bunting, I guess, in the second one. But no, Juwan Jennings, player of the game for bringing the smoke and wanting the smoke in a game that was basically meaningless. I loved it.
I'm about that pick for Juwan Jennings. By the way, just off the board, somebody who didn't play in this game at all, but I just want to give a shout-out to the end of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. Mike Evans getting his 89th receiving yard of the day. He needed 80. What did he need? 80 on the day? I think it was the total. He needed 80 or 85 or something to get to 1,000, which would tie him with Jerry Rice for the most consecutive seasons ever of 1,000 yards receiving. He's at 11. He also, by picking up 5 catches and that 80 yards today, got a $3 million bonus. So that was the final play of the Buccaneers game. That was a fun end to their regular season as they're headed to the playoffs as the champions of the NFC South. 49ers fall to the Arizona Cardinals. They get swept by the Cardinals this season. 47-24 the final. We'll get to the drive of the game and the call of the game before we get you over to the Minnesota Vikings, who are at the Detroit Lions in a battle for the NFC's number 1 seed. More to come only here on the Sports Leader.
Juszczyk slides left, Taylor the back. They're going to push Dobbs in. Dobbs takes it. It's the Dobbs push from Juszczyk from behind, and he should be in this time, isn't he?
Yep, touchdown.
Touchdown! San Francisco!
Josh Dobbs, a rushing touchdown there. Also threw for a couple of touchdowns, by the way. We'll make that our drive of the game. Sponsored by El Cerrito Honda, more than just a car dealership. We're family. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. Niners fall 47-24 to the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona to finish the 2024 season. If you had to guess, Josh Dobbs, is he back next year, JD?
I feel like he's not, because he's looking for another opportunity. I sort of feel like he might be looking for an opportunity to start somewhere, or at least get the kind of job to where he can go and compete, be the backup, but a situation where he knows that the starting quarterback, whoever it is, whether it's another veteran or a young guy, may not be for long, and he'd get an opportunity to step in and play a lot. So I would love to have him back if I'm the Niners, but I kind of feel like he's looking to maybe go in a different direction.
I'm wondering, and we've seen this now just because, and again, not everybody's the same, and not everybody's going to develop and grow the same, but Sam Darnold, and not that Dobbs is at any point the same, on the same track or been on the same track that Darnold was on. But in terms of Josh Dobbs' career, he's been a backup for the majority of his career. Started in spurts because of injuries and whatnot over the last couple of seasons. But is there any value, you think, in grabbing a guy like that off of a 49er offense like we've seen Sam Darnold emerge? Do you think we could see that happen more often, that guys are going, hey, we've seen what goes on in that building. They obviously know how to get the most out of their quarterbacks. I mean, look at Jimmy Garoppolo and what's happened to him beyond playing for the 49ers. Played okay today for the Rams. But in terms of what the Niners get out of their QBs, I think you'd be foolish to say they don't get the most that they could.
No, they do, and I think the Niners need to look, if Dobbs does look to go in a different direction himself, then the Niners need to look to be able to get that next guy that somebody else is going to want, because you want to have that kind of quality of player if Brock Purdy winds up having some kind of an injury to where he has to play. I think that cycle works really well for everybody. It works well for the Niners because you're getting quality backup talent. It works really well for the player because he gets to come in and up his own stock, and then it obviously works very well for that player's next team once things ultimately get settled and they move on from the 49er program, Copes.
From the program. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. We're going to get you over to Minnesota and Detroit. In Detroit, they got 7 minutes to play in the first half of that one, and Detroit is up 7-0 as Jared Goff was just intercepted deep in their own territory. The Vikings did go for it on 4th and goal on their last drive, and then were stopped after Sam Darnold overthrew his receiver in the end zone. But now the Vikings are set up for a nice 1st and 10 here inside the 20 and a chance to tie Detroit before the half is over. We'll get you over to that game as soon as we wrap up. We'll get you the call of the game next, and then out to Detroit for the Vikings in Detroit on Sunday Night Football for the number 1 seed in the NFC playoff picture. More to come here on The Sports Leader.
Here's Dobbs with a boot roll now. Going to throw back left, and he throws deep. Wide open! Kyle Juszczyk diving for the end zone! Touchdown! Juice!
It's about time. Feed 44.
Kyle Juszczyk finds the end zone there on a touchdown pass by Josh Dobbs, and we'll make that the call of the game, sponsored by Sweet James Accident Attorneys. If you're injured in an accident, call Sweet James at 800-9-million and sweetjames.com. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson, who is live from Harmonic Brewing outside of Chase Center for some Dubs OT as soon as the Dubs wrap up with the Sacramento Kings this evening. And we are wrapping things up here as the Niners have finished their season for 2024. Mercifully, it comes to an end, 6-11. And as you mentioned, Niners maybe need to lay in the weeds a little bit. Some of these AFC South teams are going to see next year and have a recoup, bounce back type of season. Kyle, you stick a name that's out there as maybe somebody who would not be back or may not be back for next season. We'll see. As I do think this is going to be a much different looking 49ers lineup or roster as we enter 2025. JD, some final thoughts for you on the 2025 season?
Yeah, they're at a point where, well, yeah, I mean, they're kind of fused together now. I mean, they're at a point where I do think they need an infusion. I mean, the first thing they have to figure out is how much they're going to pay Brock Purdy. Obviously, it's good news that it looks like he's averted any kind of significant injury with that elbow, so that's outstanding. You got to get that out of the way quickly because I think that sets the tone for the entire offseason. Then you look to improve. I think the biggest area of need on the roster is that interior defensive line, defensive tackle, getting back to being better against the run. Add a linebacker, get Trey Greenlaw back into the fold as well, but add somebody that's sort of the next guy after Greenlaw and Fred Warner. And really look to improve the roster that way. Get your physicality back on that end. And look, I think you're going to have some protections offensively for the fact that you don't know how much you're going to get out of Brandon Ayuk. A difficult decision looms on Deebo Samuel. And they've got a lot of work to do. But as we've seen in the NFL, 6-11 can be flipped completely very easily in one offseason. So the Niners are going to have to hope they can do that.
Well, that's going to do it for our post-game broadcast for the 49ers for this season. We ran all the way into February of this year, the last time we did this last year. And we're hoping to do the same next year, by the way, as the 49ers in Levi Stadium will play host to the Super Bowl in the 2025 season. That'll be in early 2026. Thanks so much to everybody who helps our pre- and post-game get going and happen throughout the season. Big thanks to our guy Tim Webb, our executive producer of 49ers pre- and post-game. Our guy Kyle Harr, who's always running the games, doing a great job for us on pre- and post-game. Kyle Chung always cutting sound for us, as well as our guy Ryan McCarthy. Does an awesome job. Raph in the KNBR Weather Center, our co-host for home games. Dennis Brown, the Super Bowl champion. Of course, John Lund, who was with us for the whole first part of this season. Love our guy John Lund. And a big shout out to our guy Bob Sargent, our partnership's broadcast partner over with the 49ers. Love you, Sarge. Appreciate everything this year. That's going to do it for 49er football on KNBR for the 2024 season. But that's not all the football you're getting. We're going to throw you live to Sunday Night Football with 6:35 to play in the first half. The Lions lead the Minnesota Vikings 7-3. Lions have the ball, and they are looking to score here before the end of the first half. See if Minnesota gets the ball back as well. Thanks to everybody who tuned in and joined us all season long. Make sure you tune in 6 a.m. tomorrow for all your Bay Area news and 49er news right here on your home of 49er football for the last 20 seasons. It's KNBR, the sports leader.